The crowd on 125th Street froze as Martin Keene's laughter echoed down the busy block. He stood tall in his navy suit, polished shoes reflecting the harsh midday sun, a cigarette dangling carelessly from his fingers. His words weren't just cruel. They were aimed, precise, a weapon sharpened by privilege. In front of him, a bald black woman clutched a paper bag of fruit, her smooth scalp glinting under the light. Her hands trembled slightly, but her spine remained straight, defiant against the public display of humiliation. "Looks like Harlem's got its own bowling ball," he shouted, and the laughter of his entourage cut through the Saturday air. Phones lifted, cameras recorded. Then, in a heartbeat, the air shifted. The crowd stiffened, faces hardened. A voice broke the tension, piercing through the street noise. "She's a cancer survivor, you heartless bastard." Martin's grin faltered, power slipping like sand through his fingers, and in that single moment, the balance of control changed irreversibly. Aisha Thompson had grown up in Brooklyn, navigating streets that taught her resilience before she even understood the word. She was 32, a woman whose life had been layered with both struggle and quiet victories. Her mother worked 2 jobs, her father battled his own demons, and Aisha learned self-reliance at an early age. Summers were spent on stoops with cousins, playing jump rope and hopscotch, while the smell of fried chicken mingled with the distant rumble of subway trains. She loved the rhythm of the city, the energy of its streets, and the stories carried. In its walls, cancer had taken her hair, a symbol she had once worn proudly, leaving her bald and raw under the sun. Each morning she tied vibrant scarves or went bareheaded, reclaiming herself in small, defiant acts. Sometimes she walked along the East River, wind against her scalp, telling herself that strength lay not in hair, but in courage. Her job at a small Harlem library was a sanctuary. She guided children to stories that gave them wings, whispering hope into their lives even as her own body waged a private war. She memorized their favorite books, encouraged shy voices, and found joy in their small victories. Outside, the city's gaze was rarely gentle. Some eyes lingered with pity, others with disdain. Whispers followed her in grocery aisles and coffee shops. Mothers pulled children aside, men smirked. The streets carried an unspoken message. Her difference made her visible, and in that visibility, vulnerable. Yet, Aisha moved with quiet dignity, baking bread for neighbors, volunteering at local shelters, keeping small joys alive amidst shadows. Evenings in Harlem were textured, streetlights glowing against graffiti walls, buses rumbling past, children laughing in alleyways. She walked home along Lenox Avenue, noting the resilience around her. Barbers sweeping steps, couples sharing benches, street musicians playing blues riffs. These moments were her armor, reminders that even in a city often harsh pockets of warmth existed. But there was an undercurrent of unease, subtle and persistent, like privilege casting shadows she couldn't escape. That shadow would soon take form in Martin Keene. Martin Keene had become a recurring presence. Sleek black car, entourage in tweedy, tailored suits, arrogance in every step. He lingered at crosswalks, cafes, grocery stores, always scanning, always calculating. His eyes, when they landed on her, were not curious. They were predatory. At first, subtle, lingering stares, whispered jokes, smirks at her expense. Then tangible. One morning, a synthetic blonde wig left on the library steps. Another day, a muttered insult to a friend about her baldness. Each act calculated, each act meant to make her small. Despite it all, Aisha refused fear. She kept the library open, guided children, attended appointments, and walked through the city as if it were her stage. Yet she felt the microaggressions everywhere. At the clinic, a receptionist raised an eyebrow at her bald head. Nurses whispered about her choice while entering rooms. At the bank, a teller's tone implied suspicion when she tried to discuss a loan for a small community project. Even in public transportation, passengers avoided sitting next to her or sneered. The city itself layered with history of systemic racism, reminded her daily that survival was never guaranteed. She walked streets where past protests, past injustices, still echoed, and she carried the weight of knowing some people could see only her difference, never her humanity. And Martin Keene, wealthy, powerful, untouchable, represented all the cruelty she had been taught to navigate silently. Then came Saturday. The farmers' market bustled, balloons, music, the smell of fresh produce. Aisha moved through the crowd, basket clutched to her chest, feeling eyes on her. Martin appeared, entourage surrounding him like a shield, arrogance radiating. His words cut through the market. "Hey, who polished that bowling ball?" The crowd paused, phones lifted. The laughter of his entourage echoed like mockery amplified. Aisha froze. Her basket nearly slipped. She could feel every stare, every judgment, every ounce of public cruelty pressing against her. Suddenly, the energy of the crowd shifted. A stranger, a woman in jeans and a hoodie, stepped forward. "She's a cancer survivor, you heartless bastard," she shouted. The sound was sharp, clear, undeniable. Heads turned, whispers became gasps, murmurs of outrage rose. People instinctively moved closer to Aisha, forming a subtle protective barrier. Martin's smirk faltered, his voice cracked. His men looked uneasy. The balance of power on that street had begun to tilt. Then, social media did its part. A bystander's phone streamed live. Comments flooded in within seconds. "How dare he? Who does he think he is?" Within an hour, the video went viral. Online communities dissected his actions, hashtagging justice for Aisha, while exposing Martin's history of microaggressions and racial prejudice in corporate dealings. The streets and the internet converged, amplifying the reckoning in real time. Even as chaos unfolded, Aisha maintained poise. She reflected on her life, the injustices she had endured silently, and the courage it took to show up every day despite them. The city around her, the vendors, the children, the elders who had seen decades of struggle, now formed a chorus of silent resistance, each person contributing to a collective stand against cruelty. She realized that courage was contagious. One voice, one act of truth could ripple through the city, through social media, through the consciousness of people who had grown complacent. Martin tried to laugh off the moment, but the laughter sounded hollow even to his own ears. The crowd's judgment weighed on him, their gaze sharp as knives. People closed in instinctively. They didn't touch, didn't speak, just existed as witnesses. Aisha's inner thoughts raced. She remembered every insult, every microaggression, every hospital visit where nurses had doubted her, every banker who had raised a suspicious eyebrow. All those moments converged into a single, quiet power. His attempts at control failed spectacularly. Phones streamed live. Comments flooded social media. Local news outlets picked up the story, and even the building managers of the properties he owned felt the pressure of public scrutiny. The facade of untouchable wealth cracked under the weight of truth. And through it all, Aisha stood, chest rising steadily, gaze forward, the sunlight reflecting off her bare head like a beacon. She did not have to raise her voice. The world had begun to speak for her. Strangers joined in, not to attack, but to witness and protect. Vendors, mothers, fathers, teens, and elderly alike formed an invisible barrier. The crowd itself, a declaration. Cruelty has limits. Martin's entourage began to look anxious. His power, built on money and fear, had no meaning here. It was a public courtroom, and the jury was the people. The sirens in the distance, once background noise, now punctuated the moment. A reminder that accountability, like justice, moves through both time and place. Aisha reflected inwardly, thinking of every act of courage she had witnessed in her life. The protests she had joined as a teenager, the neighbors who had stood against gentrification, the small victories in community centers, all of it led to this. A single act of cruelty confronted, and a collective human conscience asserting itself. Martin Keene had become powerless, not because of law, but because of visibility, integrity, and community. The video went viral across platforms. Headlines screamed, "Millionaire mocks cancer survivor in Harlem, faces instant backlash." Martin's reputation crumbled. Investors withdrew, projects stalled, and public opinion turned him toxic. The wealthy could buy buildings and influence, but they could not buy respect or rewrite truth. Aisha's life transformed. She received messages from strangers nationwide. Children sent drawings celebrating bald heroes. Women shared their own survival stories. Her library became a center for empowerment. Invitations arrived for school talks, community programs, and panels on health, resilience, and racial justice. She began writing the book she had long dreamed of, chronicling not just her survival, but the intricate realities of facing systemic prejudice. Even as recognition grew, the scars remained. The memory of mocking laughter, public humiliation, and the sharp eyes of strangers were etched in her mind. Yet she transformed that pain into purpose. Her voice, once tentative, now thundered through stages, classrooms, and social media. She embodied dignity, courage, and the undeniable strength of human spirit. Martin, meanwhile, continued to live, smaller than before. Whispers followed him, not of respect, but of shame. His wealth could not erase the memory of 125th Street, where privilege had failed and humanity had triumphed. Aisha became more than a survivor. She became a symbol. And the question that lingered in the hearts of everyone who witnessed her story was clear, haunting, and urgent. If this could happen to her in broad daylight, while the world watched, who will be next if we remain silent? Sometimes the most powerful moments of change come from ordinary people refusing to stay silent. Aisha showed us that dignity cannot be stolen, and injustice cannot hide forever. What's an injustice you've seen that shook you to the core? Tell us in the comments. And if you believe in the power of these stories, subscribe to support more voices like hers.